Here is something that doesn't make sense until it does. The research on happiness consistently finds that the people who report the highest levels of life satisfaction are rarely the ones with the biggest houses, the most impressive titles, or the most options available to them. They're often people with quieter lives, smaller circles, fewer choices, deeper routines. And when you first hear that, something resists it. Because everything around you, every ad, every LinkedIn post, every cultural story about what a successful life looks like, points in the exact opposite direction. Bigger, more, faster, further. So either the research is wrong, or the story you've been handed about what makes a life good is... Here's what genuinely fascinates me about this, because it's not an argument against ambition. It's not a case for staying small or giving up or settling. It's an explanation of what expansion actually costs, psychologically, neurologically, in real daily life that almost nobody ever explains clearly. Until now. Let me show you what the pursuits of bigger actually does to a brain in real time. Think about the last time you got something you really wanted. A promotion, a new apartment, a relationship you'd been hoping for, a number in your bank account you'd been working toward. How long did it feel as good as you thought it would? If you're being honest, probably not as long as you expected. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. And then, almost without noticing, the new thing became the normal thing, and the normal thing stopped feeling like anything. And somewhere on the horizon, a new target appeared. That's not ingratitude. That's not a character flaw. That's your brain doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. Adapt, recalibrate, and start scanning for the next thing that might represent an advantage. And if you've ever felt that strange flatness after achieving something you worked hard for, that quiet, is this it? In the moment that was supposed to feel like arrival, you're not broken. You're experiencing one of the most well-documented phenomena in behavioral psychology. But here's where it gets complicated. The same brain that adapts to good things also adapts to complexity, to noise, to the weight of too many options, too many obligations, too many versions of success competing for your attention at once. The person with the bigger life often isn't living more fully. They're managing more, maintaining more, overthinking more. And the anxiety that comes with that, the low-level hum of keeping everything in motion, rarely gets named for what it is. It just gets called emphasize ambition. And ambition in American culture is never supposed to hurt. So what's actually happening inside the brain of someone who lives smaller and feels more? Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. Your nervous system has two modes. The first is activation, alert, scanning, responding to novelty and threat. The second is regulation, calm, present, able to experience satisfaction without immediately scanning for what's next. Here's the thing most people never hear clearly. You cannot fully experience contentment while your nervous system is in activation mode. And a life built on constant expansion, new goals, new challenges, new social comparisons, keeps the nervous system in activation almost permanently. The Harvard study of adult development, the longest-running study of human happiness ever conducted, spanning 85 years and 2 generations, found something that stopped researchers in their tracks. What that means for you is this: the single strongest predictor of happiness and health in later life wasn't wealth, fame, achievement, or intelligence. Emphasize, it was the quality of close relationships, not the number. The depth. Be honest. When you think about the moments in your life that felt most full, most real, most worth having, how many of them involved an audience? And then there's what Barry Schwartz at Swarthmore College called the paradox of choice. The finding that more options don't produce more satisfaction. They produce more anxiety, more second-guessing, more loss aversion. Your brain doesn't experience a menu of 40 options as freedom. It experiences it as 40 opportunities to make the wrong choice. And the bigger your life gets, the more options, the more paths, the more versions of success available, the louder that anxiety becomes. The people who live small aren't missing out on options. They've made a decision, consciously or not, to trade the noise of more for the signal of enough. So let's walk through this together, not as a set of instructions, but as a shift in how you see what you're actually building. The first thing worth understanding is that the hedonic treadmill, That relentless adaptation machine your brain runs cannot be beaten by getting more. It can only be interrupted by deliberate attention. Psychologists call this savoring, a technique studied extensively by Fred Bryant at Loyola University Chicago. It's not gratitude journaling. It's not positive thinking. It's the practice of consciously slowing down the experience of something good long enough for your brain to actually register it before adaptation kicks in. Your nervous system needs approximately 15 to 20 seconds of focused, undistracted attention on a positive experience before it begins to encode it as meaningful, before it stops being background noise and starts being something your brain actually files. Most people never give their good moments that long. They're already thinking about the next thing before this one is finished arriving. At work, this sounds like when something goes well, a project lands, a conversation clicks, a small win appears. Stop for 20 seconds before moving on, not to perform gratitude, to actually let it register. You're interrupting the treadmill before it accelerates. At home, this sounds like choosing one moment per day, a meal, a conversation, a quiet hour, and giving it your full nervous system, not just your presence. There's a difference. But here's where it gets deeper, and this is the part most people skip straight over. Living small isn't really about having less. It's about conscious subtraction, a framework drawn from research by Michael Norton at Harvard Business School on experiential consumption and well-being. Question isn't, what should I add to make my life better? It's, what am I currently maintaining that is costing me more than it's giving me? Most people audit their lives for what's missing. Almost nobody audits for what's draining. Think about the obligations you've accumulated that once felt like opportunities, the social commitments that feel like performances, the goals you're still chasing because you set them 5 years ago and haven't stopped to ask whether the person you are now would choose them again. At work, conscious subtraction sounds like once a quarter, listing every recurring commitment, meetings, projects, relationships, responsibilities, and asking honestly, does this still align with what I actually want to build, or am I just maintaining it because stopping feels harder than continuing? At home, it sounds like identifying one thing in your life right now that takes consistent energy, but produces very little genuine satisfaction, and asking what it would feel like to let it go. Not whether you should, just what it would feel like. And then, this is the part the research keeps coming back to, the thing the Harvard study found across 85 years and 2 generations. Go one level deeper. The happiest people aren't the ones who subtracted the most or savored the most. They're the ones who invested the freed up energy into depth, specifically into a small number of relationships they chose to know and be known by completely. Psychologists call this relational depth investment, the deliberate choice to go further with fewer people rather than wider with more. Not networking, not maintaining, actually knowing someone, being actually known. In practice, this is the simplest and hardest thing on this list. It means choosing this week one relationship in your life that matters and giving it something real, not a check-in text. A conversation where you ask something you actually want to know the answer to, where you say something true instead of something comfortable. The small life isn't a consolation prize. It's what you get when you stop spending your attention on everything and start spending it on something. Here's what I want you to take from this. The happiest people didn't fail to build bigger lives. They didn't lack ambition or drive or opportunity. Many of them had all of those things. They just arrived, some gradually, some suddenly, at a question that most people are too busy to stop and ask. Bigger than what, and for whom? You weren't wrong for wanting more. You were working with the information you had in a culture that is relentlessly, specifically designed to make expansion feel like the only direction worth moving. Now you have different information. The question isn't whether to be ambitious. The question is whether the life you're building, the size of it, the shape of it, the pace of it, is something you chose, or something that chose you while you were busy moving fast enough not to notice. Drop a comment. What's one part of your life right now that feels genuinely full? Not impressive, not productive, just full. I want to know what that looks like for you.